Welcome to this Age of Empires forecasted game, and today we've got something very special for you. I'll tell you why in a second, because we're going to introduce the players. In the north corner of the map, we've got Divine DFP playing in red as the English. His opponent today, we've missed him, we love him, our favourite farmer, besides me of course. We've got the Mista playing in yellow as the Abbasid dynasty. Now, full disclosure, I'm not actually a farmer, I'm not here to deceive people, but what I'm going to say is that the map today is waterholes. And it's going to be an interesting matchup, the English versus the Abbasid dynasty, Divine versus the Mista. Today is very hot in the UK, incredibly hot. And I realized actually, we actually have something called ice cream farms in the UK. And obviously I'm reminded by this because of the Mista being a farmer in real life. And we have some crazy flavors at the ice cream farm. It got me thinking, what are people's favorite ice cream flavors? I thought to myself, a lot of people watch these videos on YouTube. I do wonder what's the most popular one out there. What's the most outlandish one as well? Like, I've had all sorts of flavors. I've had, would you believe, sweet corn, pineapple, coconut. I mean, coconut's not too wild. But what I'd love to know from you guys in the comment section below, let me know what is your most favorite flavor of ice cream. That's the first question. The second question, what's the craziest flavor of ice cream you've tasted? So what's your favorite and what's the craziest that you've ever tasted? And that should get us conversation going on YouTube, I reckon. Speaking conversations, well, the villagers here on the southeast for the Abbasid dynasty, they're talking a lot about an eco-wing. Looks like that's going to be happening. Might be multiple town centres for the Mista. He might be looking to... I mean, it's a bit of a shame, the map. I don't think he's going to be farming all that much. We shall see if he's going to be putting the skills that he has in real life into this game. Because there is a lot of water here with a lot of decent amount of fish to be gathered, a lot of food. Surprisingly enough, something that we often see with the English is that they can sometimes drop a mill actually on the shorefish and gather that, because the villagers are pretty well protected in themselves. They can shoot the short bows, and the Abbasid dynasty are not the most aggressive, but it looks like it's a fairly kind of early build for the English that the Divine's going for. He's going for the early wheelbarrow. It's not something that we've seen, as Age of Empires has progressed, there's been lots of build order iterations, and this is probably one of the most early ones actually. Going for an early wheelbarrow. So Divine sticking to his roots, sticking to the roots of Age of Empires 4, with a relatively older build for the English. I mean, ultimately the build order is going to be nice because he's got the wheelbarrow nice and early. He's going to be getting a council hall at a relatively good time. Now the reason why this is going to be an interesting match as well, because both civilizations have some flexibility. Now the Abbasid dynasty are a little bit more geared towards the eco branch of things, getting multiple town centers, but they can also go for the military wing. Of course, that's not what Mista's gone for today, so it looks like he's going to be getting a second town center, obviously already on stone. And the English can be flexible in terms of aggression, and also thinking about going two town centers themselves. I think in this matchup, though, the English versus the Abbasid dynasty, it is very much on the English to put some pressure on early, and it's because of the fact that, well, the Abbasid dynasty does booming a little bit better. They have fresh foodstuffs, the technology which makes the villagers cheaper, and of course, also they get multiple town centers for cheaper as well with the eco wing. So you can see reduce the cost of villages by 35%. That's nothing to be sniffed at. It's actually a pretty big deal when you consider you might have sort of multiple town centers. The English, though, they are no surprised. There's no surprise with the English in terms of their ability to be aggressive. The council hall will double produce those archers, effectively a double archery range worth, and it's pretty strong. Of course, not having to spend 300 wood for that, and he's going to be transitioning to wood now a little bit. I mean, he will be able to afford some longbows, but he's actually not building any just yet. So, interesting. It might not be the case that it's going to be super aggressive. Now, something to think about with the English is there's kind of like a timing attack where they can put a lot of pressure, say around sort of the 8-9 minute mark, which is super strong. And especially if they build up a large number of units. Now, one thing that's important to think about as well with the English is that they do have access to a unit in the feudal age which only one other civilization has access to, and that is the man-at-arms, and the only other civilization that gets that is the Holy Roman Empire, the HRE for short. And the man-at-arms is really good because it's very tanky. It's got a large amount of pierce armor, it's very difficult to take care of. There's no direct counter in the feudal age, but archers can do decent work against them if they can kind of shoot and retreat, what we call kiting, where they shoot, retreat. So it'd be interesting to see if that's an option for the Abbasid dynasty today. The only thing about man-at-arms coming up against them in the feudal age, if they push your main base, there's only so much you can retreat, right? So with a lot of aggression coming from the English, that could become a problem. Farming transition early there Now the farming, I mean, it's actually kind of interesting. We've got the farmer here in the southeast, but he's not really relying on that. He's going for the berries instead. The real farmer in Age of Empires 4 apparently is Divine. He's going to go for a lot of food coming in from the farms. It's obviously a very cheap option for the English, and also very resource effective in terms of gather speed. It's very, very nice. He's also got a lot of the eco upgrades. So we talked about how maybe that the English need to be aggressive, but actually Divine's playing this completely differently. He's not produced a single military unit. Instead, he's going for the eco approach. He's going for a wheelbarrow, double broadaxe and horticulture. And whilst at the second town centre, we'll be producing more villages for Mista, well, just consider the fact that the eco upgrades for Divine is really boosting things up for the villages that exist already. And it does take a bit of time for the villager lead to build up and to actually make a significant difference. Of course, as well, there's actually a relatively good investment into this. Whilst they're cheap for the Abbasid dynasty, they're not cheap overall. A good number of resources for this town centre, just for the privilege of being able to train more villagers. But of course, there's a timing issue. You give this second town centre a good sort of 8-9 minutes, those villagers would have paid for itself, and they would have actually been able to translate it to military. It's going to be a stable and archery range for the Abbasid dynasty, and did drop a barracks. I'm not sure what that building was. It's suddenly, I think he just repositioned it. It does look like a barracks itself. It just repositioned it, and it's going to start producing those longbows and spearmen. Now those got his eco up and running very nicely. Got one set of 8 farms and decent number of sheep. But interestingly enough, neither player going for the water in the middle. I think really it's not really the task of the Abbasid dynasty to do that. They don't really have the position to do that. It could be the English if any civilization does it, but Divine relying on farms for now. Wants to play a bit more of a condensed economy and work out from there, because he's got a bit of military to defend just in case, and he's going to get a scout to see what's up. He does see a horseman. He's going to be going for steeled arrow as an early military upgrade for those longbows. So certainly, I mean, you kind of expect the English to really build a lot of longbowmen. It's kind of their unique unit, a special unit, a very strong unit as well. But yeah, a relatively passive opening to the game, but lots to talk about it. And things will heat up soon, I'm sure about that, because of the fact that the units are now moving across the map. It's got a couple of man-at-arms there as well. It's adding those into the mix. And longbows and spearmen. So it's very difficult for the Abbasid dynasty to counter this. Now, with the situation of the match as it is, the Abbasid dynasty obviously investing in that second town centre is going to need to defend. He's got 15 military versus 6, and the Abbasid dynasty obviously only got 6. He's going to have to defend for a short period of time. One way he can do that is to try and wall up, just to tunnel all the military to the town centre. Make sure that there's no other way around. Like, this is a bit of an exposed economy that if Divine sees, it's very problematic. So static defences in terms of walls is an option, and also outposts. If you get outposts with some arrow slits and placements, he may look to just produce units, which is certainly another way to defend. But the trouble with doing that against the English is the mechanics for the English army is very, very snowbally. And the reason why I say that is because of the longbowmen, really, essentially. Well, village gets sniped. He's looking to build an outpost forward to get the network of castles bonus for the English, which would increase the speed of attack by 20%. But I mean, as I was saying, the snowball effect for the English is really quite real, and it's because of the longbow range. It's very difficult to get close to these guys, and if you commit to a fight, if you actually start committing and you're in range of the longbowmen are going to get good damage. They're going to kill some of your units, and therefore you're committed. But if you decide, actually, no, I'm kind of going to be in and out, it's very difficult to dance around the English. Like, if you go in and you get hit by longbowmen, you've lost units. So you either have to go in and actually fight or back off and retreat. The trouble is, if you retreat, you're going to lose even more units on the retreat, and you're not caused any damage at all. And so it really comes down to the fact that English can have positioning and a lot of kind of dictating of the fight. So it's something that the Abbasid dynasty have to be careful about. The one way to counter that, obviously, is with static defenses. It buys you some time. But yeah, once the English get rolling, it can be very difficult. And the same is the opposite as well. So whilst I say that, if you commit and you start getting hit by longbows, but if you're actually going to win the fight overall, if you take the fight and you win it, then the English really suffer, because the reinforcements are pretty slow, mostly infantry, and they become very exposed. So obviously taking a critical loss like that is pretty huge. And that's why we talk about the snowball effect. A lot of horsemen here for the Mista, rather, picking off for reinforcements, which is actually really quite key, just to thin out those numbers a little bit, buy himself some more time. And it looks like now 2 rams already on the field. Those got built quick time. And those are going to look to try and do some pressure on that second town centre. Now, villager lead is pretty extensive, actually. 14 villages ahead. But the good thing for the Abbasid dynasty is that the English can get relatively tunnel visioned. Like, there's a lot of damage that could be had here. Because the units aren't the most quickest to move, he wants to focus on the second town centre, which is understandable. Horsemen getting a couple of hits on the rams. The network of castles bonus is now in play, which is a bit of a concern for the Abbasid dynasty. You know, these units are bad enough as it is to deal with. When you add in an extra 20% attack speed, it's actually kind of a bit painful, it has to be said. The horsemen are going to dive in. They do have bonus damage that the rams take against horsemen, but you can see, look at these longbowmen shooting the horsemen from a large range. Man-at-arms going to be diving in, tanking a lot of the fire. The arrows from the archers just trying to tickle those man-at-arms. Really, it's very difficult to deal with them, especially that he has the iron undermesh upgrade. It's very significant there for the English. The town center goes down, and those villagers are going to have to retreat and try and run for their lives. A couple are being focused by the longbowmen. Actually huge. It actually reduces the villager lead by a significant amount, by 7. He does have a villager lead of 10 still remaining, but now he's only got one town center. And there's lots of investment that went into that town center, and also there's villagers too. So good aggression here from Divine to get that second town center. A couple of horsemen caught on the retreat. Man-at-arms doing well to defend the longbow, although we do see a couple of dead longbowmen perishing into the ground. Wow, the animation actually rolled over. I didn't actually notice that. Did you guys see that? The top one. And then they suddenly disappear onto the ground. But that's understandable. Alright, more rams coming out. So early aggression from the English. The question is, will Mista be able to hold this? He's got a large military force now, 37. But with the network of castles bonus, it's a little bit iffy. Maybe looking to get the wood line on the east side now. He's got a gold vein looking to protect that. There comes a point where after the second push, if Divine can't really do huge amounts of damage, he might consider going to the castle age. It looks like the Mista trying to circle around, pick off reinforcements. A very nice option. He won't want to dive on the spearman though. It does lose one horseman, possibly a second. Oh, that's actually a bad engagement there for the Mista. Loses 2 horsemen and loses a lot of health in the others. The archers will pick out these 3 spearmen and the man-at-arms, cutting off the retreat, the reinforcements rather. And but Divine will build forward with his army. He'll move forward and try and protect the reinforcements. But a nice maneuver by the Mista. He's going to try and get some counter-attack. It's actually a nice option. It gives Divine a decision to make. Does he continue with the push on the front lines, which actually looks like he's going to do, and I don't blame him, especially with the 2 rams involved. I think that's a good call. The Mista, though, trying to cut off reinforcements with his main force. Does he have anything back at home? That's the question, because he's going to need to defend. He's got mainly a horseman, but look at the number of man-at-arms coming out for Divine. His economy must be looking very strong at home. It's actually got almost 18 farms. Some of them are still building, but that is a significant number of farms. Before too long, if he goes to gold, I mean, he's got 3 villages in gold already. That will slowly edge him towards that castle age. And that castle age will be hugely important as a power spike. Especially for the English, because they can, when they go up to the next stage, they can actually go up very fast by increasing the number of villagers building the landmark. The Abbasid dynasty, on the other hand, they are stuck, they're capped, but just by the speed of the House of Wisdom. They've got no other option to increase the speed of their uptime, and so it can be a bit of a difficult situation for them. It looks like Mr. edging towards that castle age, though. Maybe Man-at-Arms or the Ghulam, the Abbasid dynasty equivalent, could be a good option. It'll do well against the longbows if they can get it close, and it'll do, they'll trade decently well against the early Man-at-Arms. Of course, these are feudal age units, so something has to give here for the Abbasid dynasty. Now, back at home, pretty safe economy. I wonder where actually Mista's army went. Does have a berry patch there. There we are. I was going to try and get a pincer attack and try and surround. This could be a nice cleanup actually for the Mista. Really good maneuvering of the army, because a lot of the army there for Divine wasn't getting involved. It takes the fight. The trouble is, a lot of Man-at-Arms is tanking a lot of the action, and look how strong they are. They are pushing this back. There was only half the army there for Divine, but a lot of army does go down on the retreat. We talked about this, about the longbowman range. Those 2 rams are always threatening to put even more pressure. Castle Age still a little bit away off. He does have a decent amount of food and gold in the bank, though. I think Mista's toying with the idea, but doesn't want to go up too prematurely because he's going to get pushed. Look, 4 rams possibility. That ram is a little bit weak. It'd be nice to see a villager come out to repair that, potentially, but the army continues to trickle forward, and we are now rocking and rolling with 20 farms. Yeah, add in a couple more villages and gold, and he's going to be up to that Castle Age quick time. Although the food income for the Mista is actually looking a little bit better, surprisingly enough. It's got the berries, of course. Here come the 4 rams. This is where things become a little bit tricky for the Mista. Does have a villager lead, courtesy of that second town centre that he had earlier on. That, of course, was taken down. But how does he deal with 4 rams? And we've seen this a lot in Age of Empires 4 at the moment, where the rams are very dangerous, because they're often very much uncontested. Like, what does Mr. do here? Does he focus on the army? Does he focus on the rams? If he focuses on the rams, the longbows will shred his army. And then if he doesn't have any army left, then he's in trouble. He's actually going to continue to pick off reinforcements. A really nice approach there. He's going to try and burn down the rams for the villagers. But this is where his capital town centre is very exposed. And it's kind of concerning for his position. He picks off a lot of reinforcements. He's trying to be aggressive. Doesn't want to get pigeonholed at home. He does have a decent number of horsemen to try and defend with. Looks like he's going to try and defend and pick off reinforcements, attack from the back, and maybe catch out the longbows. That's actually a good option here because we talked about how the longbows can use their range. Well, if he attacks from both sides, the front and the back, those longbowmen might get caught out. And that looks like what he's going to try and do. This is a really nice play by Mr. because he's actually going to take out the rams with the villagers. And that is huge because now he's not forced to decide one or the other. He's not having to be forced to decide to attack the army or the rams. He can attack both because the villagers now are focusing on the rams. A really good pincer action movement there by Mr. Making Divine lose his army, making him unable to retreat, and that's absolutely huge actually. I really can't underestimate or understate that because of the fact that these villagers were able to take those rams out and they didn't have any casualties really. It all comes down to the Mister's positioning and the way he surrounded that army. Man at Arms numbers though, they're still tanking a lot, and it's really keeping the Mister back at home. No player considering Castle Age just yet. It's a little bit difficult, but the number of archers are starting to get very critical for the Mister. That was a very good cleanup. Look at this, 38 archers. There's just not enough man-at-arms. The man-at-arms are tanky, but they're not that tanky. They cannot deal with that number of archers. Villagers come out. A lot of villagers were idle though, so that's one thing positive for Divine. Now we talked about outposts being an option. That's what Mister is now resorting to. And I think it's a smart play because he needs to buy time. And he could consider potentially going for the Castle Age if he gets that food income up. But he does lose a villager. Oh, the outpost won't go up in the end. The man-at-arms will torch that down. And it pulled out the army. The Mister getting torn between two options. Going to look to raid with some horsemen. Defend at home with the archers. And I think that's a smart play actually. He does have enough archers here to defend, even with the man-at-arms I think. And the horsemen now can get some good value. Looks like the Castle Age though is on the mind for the Mister. Look how many villages he's got in gold. There's no other explanation to have that many villages on gold. Let's take a look where Mister's army is right now. Yeah, it's looking to just try and cut off reinforcements, but the horseman line of sight is pretty poor. Oh, he doesn't want to go that way, that's for sure. There's too many longbowmen. The main army being pulled back. I think Divine might clear this up. The horsemen, they need to back off this. They can't take the fight. He's going to lose a lot. Yeah, lost about 2 or 3 horsemen there. But it does mean he can push out now, and he can actually take care of this outpost. I think he'll want to. That was a good staging ground for attack for the English, and it'll take some time because it's mostly archers here. Only a couple of melee units torching that. But yeah, good pushback there for the Mister. It might be a little bit of a mismacro. Might need to pull away a couple of villagers from gold. It doesn't have the food income that you'd want right now. Just had a bit of a hard transition to farming. There are a couple of shore fishes that could be taken here, but it's a bit far out. Some walls and getting that economy there would be quite nice for him. But the good thing for the... Holy smokes, look at the number of farms that Divine is going for. 38 farms, guys, that is absolutely nuts. The English food economy really spirals. If you guys have played Age of Empires 4 yourself and played as the English, you know that when you have that number of farms, your food income is going to skyrocket. And you can see it already on the top left. 1,500 food per minute. There's plenty of food here to be taken actually, free as well. A bit surprised that he's not taking the free sources of food, but ultimately the farms are cheaper for the English, so it's not, the biggest hit in economy. It's interesting how, despite this map being very different, it's being almost played like a dry Arabia map. No one really taking advantage of the shorefish. Here come the longbowmen on the villages on gold. Well, that's a bit of a loss there for the Mister. Didn't need the gold anyway, but I'm sure you'd want those villagers to be alive. Look at the number of archers there for the Mister. Holy smokes. 57 of them. The King's Palace is going to be the landmark of choice for Divine, and I like that move because he's done a lot of eco damage. He knows that. Even if he hasn't necessarily got the villager lead, he's killed a lot of villagers, done a lot of eco damage in terms of idling. Talking about damage, Mista is going to push this back a lot. I mean, the archer numbers are very, very good. It's still the man-at-arms tanking a lot. I mean, it's still not enough to one-shot. It's a lot of archers that Mista has. Still not enough to one-shot, though. 60 of them. Although, as I say that, I don't think all the archers are firing at one man-at-arms. Might be enough to one-shot. In any case, he's pushing it back very nicely. I think Divine needs to get out of there. He needs to keep this army alive so they can be upgraded to Castle Age units. Takes a fight with the man-at-arms and then backs away with the longbowmen, looking to use the range as much as possible. Going to sacrifice the man-at-arms. They give their lives for the English army to protect the longbowmen. The longbowmen do now retreat. think this is a bit of an issue for the Mista. He won't want to engage this because that upgrade does come in pretty fast for the longbowman, although he's not actually clicked it. He's going for the upgrade for the man-at-arms first. I'm not sure why. I mean, it does make sense. If you get them to man-at-arms, it will shred the archers, but the trouble is, he's got more longbowmen than he does have man-at-arms. I need to back off and just stay alive for now. I think Mista knows that the upgrades will be coming in. Mista's going to head back home. Could potentially think about getting another town centre, but you have to mine the stone for that, Mista. And this is where things actually kind of swing in the favour of the English. The reason why I say that is because, well, the English now have a second town centre. They've got that King's Palace back here on the gold and wood. A double gold at the back as well, nicely walled up, protected from the raids that the Abbasid dynasty were threatening with. And now the villager deficit was going to reduce drastically, and well, Divine will actually start to pull ahead. The thing is, Mista needs to be conscious of the strategy and the state of play of the game, because, well, he knows that there's a King Palace now. He's scouted that out, and the reason why that's so significant is he knows that the game will go one of two directions, right? So he's going the military wing. It looks like he's going to try and push back hard with military, predominantly Gulam, it seems, because of the number of barracks that he's been building. But it becomes a very interesting transition point in this match where you've got one player now on 2 town centre, Divine, and the Mista now playing 1 TC. And it means that the Mista won't be able to keep up economy-wise. He just won't be able to keep up with the villager count, and he will need to punish Divine. So once, it's kind of a nice role reversal in this match, actually, how Divine had to punish the Mista for his 2 town centre. And now it's going to be the other way around. It's going to be the Mista that has to punish Divine. I would say, though, in this situation, that Divine's second town centre is much more easy to defend. And the reason for that is because it's going to have a larger military, right? When the military numbers are lower, you could do a lot more effective damage, especially if you micro well and you've got rams. But with this large number of army, it's very difficult, in my opinion, for the Mista to do a significant amount of damage, especially now that he's being kept at home. He's been pinned at home all game, and I think Divine has done a great job of doing that, just making sure he's got a lot of map positioning, map control. Palisade walls are up, but they're going to get burned down very quickly by those man-at-arms. It's only now that the Mista gets to the castle age. We talked about how difficult it is for the Abbasid dynasty because of the fact that they just can't speed up their upgrades to the castle age. And now he has to only try and get those upgrades, go for the veterancy for the archers, balanced projectiles, and composite bows. Now, composite bows is pretty crazy. Increases the attack speed by 33%, but he's going against man-at-arms, so he's going to need crossbows. But it does have a large number of archers. Going to go for some mangonels as well. Is a really strong hold needed here for the Mista. I think going up to the castle age for the Mista, was a no-brainer. He had to. But the fact that the Abbasid dynasty can't speed that up, it really hurts them in this situation. Now he's behind. Like, he's behind because of the fact that it's castle age units versus, essentially feudal age units with a couple of castle age upgrades coming in. And the mangonel, of course, which will do a decent amount of damage, might be able to hold. But look at the man-at-arms. They're shredding everything, and it's just so difficult for these feudal age archers. I mean, it's hard enough for the feudal age archers to deal with feudal age man-at-arms, but they're dealing with castle age man-at-arms. As I said, though, the veterancy does come in. Man-at-arms focusing on the villagers on the wood line, causing so much idle time, killing villagers as well. 79 to 72 on that villager count. Mangonel's still alive, though, getting huge amounts of damage on those longbowmen. It's protecting them well, and with composite bows now in, look at how fast these archers are firing. They're doing a lot of damage. He's going to need to. He needs to clear up this army. But look at the army numbers, 65 to 44. They're all trickling in. The English army is just not stopping. He could even take care of these villagers on the berries. A couple idled there, and he's just trickling them in. Big fight in the middle. It's going to try and snipe the mangonel. Doesn't quite get there. The villagers garrisoning inside the town centre. This is not looking great for the Mista. Not only is he behind on villagers, a lot of the villagers are idled underneath the town centre. And the mangonel getting good shots off is certainly going to help. And we can see a couple of crossbows mixed in there. That's really going to be the difference maker, especially with the Gulams there on the front lines. But the military numbers being relatively similar, and Divine having that second town centre, it feels like the grip on this game is starting to loosen up on the Mista. He's back, but he's being pressurised a lot, and it's a hard return to Age of Empires 4 for him against Divine. Oh, that's bad. Villagers being caught out. They're trying to get access to stone, maybe for a keep. But they're being slaughtered. Does go on the other side of the wall. I wonder whether Divine will go around with some military. Does have the potential to do that. This is looking bad. It's being attacked from all angles. Full in man-at-arms almost here from Divine. And the mangonel, the trouble is the mangonel won't be able to do too much damage against the man-at-arms. The Gulams are out though. Oh, there's no boot camp. I was just about to say, I'm a bit surprised that boot camp is not in. That would really help out the archers and the man-at-arms, the Gulam. That is for sure. That's actually a bit of a... Yeah, he's getting it now. Okay, that's good. There's a bit of a delay in getting that. That might have changed a lot of the earlier fights, but he may have potentially forgotten about it. I mean, obviously lots going on. A lot of idle villagers all around the map for the mista. And starting to push back a little bit now. Military numbers starting to equalize a little bit. The villager lead 18 now for Divine is looking very, very strong. As we head into almost the 27th minute of the game, a lot of these farms are idle just with a bunch of 4 longbows. I like the way that he's splitting up his army. It's actually really key. Look, 4 longbows denying a heck of a lot of farms, 16 of them. Here, again, a couple of longbows denying those farms and the berries. It is looking rough. Looking to get a second town centre now, though, is the mista. Will he be able to hold, though? That's the question, because there's a lot of economy he has to catch up on. I think this is going to be a really tricky situation. I think the only way, really, for the mista to hold on in this game is to somehow get a keep. And that'll slow Divine down a little bit. But it's certainly going to be a challenge from this point. Villagers here, oh, that's so bad. He's just not able to get out with them. And 7 of them, not only idle, but a lot of them losing their lives. And oh no, the farms. Mista, you didn't protect your farms. He's going to lose a lot of them. And I think we might just see the tap out soon, because he's just losing lots everywhere. He's bleeding here. The farms aren't working properly for the mista today. Divine is going to be fighting against the Mangonel. Feels confident in his inability to micro and not take too much damage. Manatime's going to dive in, going to just take the fight and try and snipe that if he can. He can't quite manage it. I guess overall it doesn't matter when you're getting so much value here. A couple of archers though for or crossbow. Mainly crossbow there for the mista fighting this back, protecting the villagers on the farms. He kept them working. The military numbers now starting to be in favour for Divine, as well as the villager lead. I think the mista might be tapping out soon. It's actually kind of rough for him in this situation. Holy smokes. Okay, well, we've got a bit of time here, I think. I just wanted to say, by the way, if you are enjoying the casted games and the content on the channel, I do appreciate you guys watching and sticking around, and I love the support that you guys are showing. So do drop a subscribe to the channel if you enjoy the cast and want to watch more. If not, then obviously I'd be surprised, because you watched to this point, so you clearly enjoy it. In any case, question is how much of this game are we going to have left to enjoy? Because the second Mangonel, that could be an option for the Abbasid dynasty to try and hold with. The question is, will he be able to stop the flood of units that are just going to be trickling in? Let's take a look at where they're coming from. There's a lot of barracks. Well, there's 3 barracks, 4 barracks, 5 barracks, 6 barracks. Oh, holy moly, 6 barracks production there for Divine. That is an incredible number of units popping out all at the same time and just going to be rushing in. I would like to see a couple of springles though for Divine. I mean, it feels like that's what he needs to try and get rid of the Mangonels, and then it would be game over. The Mista's struggling to produce. He's struggling to keep the villagers working. I think that's what Divine's done so well in this game. It's not only getting villager kills, but it's also making them idled. Again, look, another group of man-at-arms coming here for the farms. This is so key. It's such a really good indicator of high-level gameplay, is keeping these farms idled. Ultimately, what Divine's doing here is looking at where the economy is. He's seeing, what can I idle? What can I cause problems with? There are 2 Mangonels. Ultimately, they're doing damage. He does lose 1, but the main damage is not this main fight. It's these little pocket armies that are keeping so much idle there for the mista. 16 villagers idled, and it's not looking good. I think as the time goes on, Divine's going to just continue to build on this lead. Then the villagers idling underneath the town centre. This is not really a position that Divine is going to overwhelm anytime soon. But the fact is, he's keeping 10 villagers idled, and that is huge. Interestingly enough, no player have gone for relics. I mean, I think the mista would be struggling to get relics, but no relic coming in for Divine, no sacred sites. He wants to win this in just outright warfare. Looks like he's going to get greased axles, so looking to maybe get some rams on the field and push them out, get them out quickly. Getting the gold from the west. I would like to see Divine just get a bit more of a stronger foothold in the game by either activating the sacred site timer or maybe getting a keep, but he just wants to keep producing those units. There are the springles that we talked about. They're going to look to try and snipe out the Mangonel, and that will be huge if he does that. That's actually the big crux of the Abbasid dynasty, the hold and defense here, it seems. Question is, how much will it be able to do? Villagers coming out to try and torch those springles. That'll be pretty ambitious. I don't think it will happen. The English are pushing ahead with those man-at-arms. It's very difficult here for the mista, I think, to hold. Mangonel's still alive, but those springles still always threatening. Heading into almost the 30-minute mark, and there it is, ladies and gentlemen. The mista taps out. He has a very difficult return to Age of Empires 4, almost being out-farmed, which is a surprise. Divine showing the power of the English. Hope you guys enjoyed this cast of games, and hopefully see you on the next one.